Can you tell us a little bit about how you got involved with the show?
No. I went to... I was on the lot at Universal with Tim Kring for many years, and so he and I became buddies while I was doing Battlestar. He was doing Crossing Jordan and then Heroes, and so we were always bumping into each other on the lot. And I left to go do a couple seasons of Falling Skies, and right before I did that, Tim and I worked together on his show Touch. I came in to consult on a couple of for a season. I think it only lasted. Oh no, it was a 2-season show. I came in the second year, and it was fun working with Tim. And so we were like, we should figure out another. And I read this script and as a writing sample, and I passed on it. And next thing I know, Tim's calling me and saying, "Hey, did you read that script?" I said, "Yeah, I passed on the writer." He said, "Well, we just got it made, and now they want to make a series out of it. What are you doing?" And so the reason I passed on it was I thought this is too tough to pull off. It was so nuanced. I adored the script. I just thought this is too hard. Maybe this writer doesn't understand what you can really do in TV. And the fact that they pulled it off, the great director they found and the great actors that they found, I just thought they did a remarkable job. I had wrapped my show. Tim sent me the pilot. I'd read it and I watched it and I was ashamed. I was like, Jesus, you guys did it. Oh my God. And I said, what's the show? And there were enough questions about where to go that I thought there was an opportunity to come in and, make it partly mine or have some investment, some pride of ownership in it at an early stage. And so one of the first things that we talked about was we're not going to do Witch Mountain. It's not going to be kid has powers, evil government wants his powers, and it's a chase. There's elements of that, but we didn't want to just do that. We kind of felt like that had been done a lot before. So we really started talking about what it means to, what Adam already kind of had there as the premise. What happens to you when you're an adolescent? And what would happen if you woke up after having missed the entire thing? And everyone expects you to behave like an adult. You don't know what a boner is. You don't know what sex is or what a joint is or what, final exams are. I mean, you didn't have what driver's license is. And so the question then is, so that's already a show, right? But what if the events that he missed, he didn't actually miss? What if he experienced different versions of that growth, but in worlds that aren't at all like ours? And if that experience had some value to us, what would that value be? Well, maybe that value would be answers to what happens to us, answers to whether it's afterlife or inner space or whatever it is. So, of course, that's valuable. Now, to what end? To what purpose? To poison our water supply? No, we're not doing that. It's much more emotional. It's much more philosophical. Wouldn't there be men and women out there who would see that and think to themselves, my God, but maybe those men and women are ruthless, or maybe they're reckless, or maybe they're not. So that's really, everyone wants the same thing, which is answers. Not everyone's going to go about it the same way, and that's where I think our friction comes from.
Is that why you guys chose 12 years, that time frame? That's when he'd be growing up?
I think that's why Adam did, yeah. I think because that is the critical period. And if you missed it, you might go on a mission to find what you missed.
Both Adam and Tim mentioned a love and a nostalgia towards early Spielberg films and sort of those Amblin films. I'm just curious, what were some of the movies during your, period where you were sort of figuring out what your creative voice was? What were some of those movies that really stayed with you, that made an impact on your career, you think?
Well, it's all the posters in my home office that surround me when I write. So, and it's not going to be what you expect. I'll tell you the posters in my office. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Jaws, The Exorcist, Manhattan,
Love Manhattan,
Taxi Driver, Lenny, All That Jazz, and the Blues Brothers.
This is a wide array.
Bob Fosse, Woody Allen, William Friedkin, Martin Scorsese, and I guess John Landis. Yeah. I think they all represent to me in some way proof that entertaining and accessibility and mass appeal and commercialism doesn't necessarily have to mean bereft of substance and depth and challenging material. And so I look at Jaws and I think you can make a movie that makes $1 gazillion and lasts forever. You just have to figure out how to do it. So those are really, and I think what I was maybe able to bring to Beyond was, as a tremendous fan, and certainly Jaws being the first one, of that flavor of storytelling, that Spielbergian. It's kind of latchkey kids. I was raised kind of like that with a single mom. You know, you've got your own community. Parents are kind of an irritant, you know, and you've got your kind of your own life. I really responded to that. But what I thought would be fun was to establish that rhythm with the audience that they would also find very friendly, accessible, and warm. But then when something ugly happened, to be ruthless and not friendly and not nice and not Spielberg.
So that's where the taxi.
Yeah, a little bit. Where the scare is more traumatic than cathartic, and that combination of tones seems to work well for the show. Otherwise, he's an alien. Just kidding.
Did everybody get that? So if you were to wake up in that same position, if you were going to wake up and it's 12 years later and you were in a coma and all this happened, what would be the first thing that you were going to do?
I think I would try to find the first thing that I missed. I would probably look at myself in the mirror, realize I was old enough to do stuff I wasn't old enough to do before. I mean, doesn't everyone remember when you turned 17, you got to go see R-rated movies? I do. You know, you'd run out and do all the stuff you couldn't do. You'd buy beer, you go to R-rated movies, you know, and then maybe you'd hit you'd hear the record scratch and go, wait a minute, I missed a shitload of stuff. Maybe I better go back and figure it out. But no, you do all the naughty things you weren't allowed to do.
All the naughty things.
Yeah.
Last question.
Well, I don't know how much you can answer, but is there any way you could give us a tease as to what's in this other world, what we're going to see throughout the upcoming season, without giving too much away?
I think they represent a small handful of primal emotions: wonder, terror, and death. And the death is an emotion, but certainly fear of death is. And I think that the visualization of these environments comment on that. So you become invested because you care about the character's experience in that world. So the world itself as a viewer becomes acceptable. And versus if you just throw CG at people without that emotional investment, it doesn't matter. And I think people are going to be very impressed with the production values and the visual effects of this show because A, because we've done groundbreaking things that have never been done before, but B, because they're presented through Holden and through his emotional journey. So you're with him throughout them. You're not just looking from afar at a picture. Okay.
Thank you
guys.
so much. All right, we're going to move